At the moment, now we have references to current note, which I think is no longer really being used anywhere. So I'm going to take current note out of the initial state on main. I'm going to remove set current note and reset current note. In render, I can take current note out of the form props. And I think that about does it. Yep. Second. I'm going to change these now. These are now a little simpler. So I took current note out of the initial state in main. So this .state no longer has current note in it. I removed the current note related methods, which were set current note and reset current note. Just take them both out. Don't need them. And then make sure you're not passing anything about current note down to down in your form props. Don't need current note there anymore. And we already stopped passing reset current note to sidebar. Don't need to do it anymore. Remove unused current note from state.
So you only need sign out sidebar?
Yep. We've still got this problem where if we have a note ID in the URL and we refresh the page, it goes out. It does a redirect there. So what's up with that? Let's look what app.js is doing with our routes. So /notes, it should have matched this. It should have just rendered this without a redirect. Like if we'd gone to the sign-in page, I would understand that. Doesn't seem like that should hit our default route, but maybe that's what's happening because that redirects. Let's take the default route out for just a moment. We're on /notes. Now we're on /notes/SomeID. I refresh the page. Nope, it still redirects me. So it's not hitting the default route. And it is redirecting for some reason. I don't have that here, but the thing is /notes/ID should still match /notes. I didn't put exact in here, right? If I'd put exact in here, then I would expect that not to work. But since I didn't, I expect this to work. So why is it redirecting? Or it appears to be redirecting. The URL is changing. This works. But if I browse straight to it, it goes back to just /notes. But it's not the default route doing it. So I know that it is still matching. It's still matching this. It would seem to be. If for the moment I take out both of the other two routes. Okay, sign in doesn't work anymore. But look at that. It took me to sign in first. That's weird. So if I go to /notes, it's redirecting me to sign in, which then seems to be redirecting me back to notes. So that's why it's getting stripped out of there, even though I'm signed in. So watch carefully. Refresh. Did you see the URL kind of flash? I don't know how visible that is up there, but watch the URL carefully. It very briefly is redirecting me to sign in and then back to notes. So this dot signed in, when I go to /notes, this dot signed in is very briefly returning false. So even loading it from local storage isn't quite fast enough. What if instead of did mount, we did will mount? So we do it before it ever renders the page. So did mount happens right after it renders the DOM. And if we haven't loaded it from local storage yet, then at least very briefly, this dot signed in is going to be false. And it's going to redirect us to sign in, which then promptly redirects us back to notes. But it's going to briefly do the wrong thing. So if this were component will mount instead of did mount, I don't think we should have that problem. Here we are on notes. Let's refresh. I did not see it briefly redirect. Let's select one of our notes. Let's refresh the page. Not a problem anymore. Does that make sense? So that's a tricky one. Definitely an edge case. But if we had just happened to choose component will mount, we wouldn't have had the problem. So sometimes the difference between those things can be super important. Whether something happens right before the component is rendered or right after. So if the component is rendered, if render has already run, then we won't have loaded it from local storage yet.
So component did mount renders first.
Will mount.
Will mount does it. Whatever's in will.
So the order in which the methods are called is component will mount, render, component did mount. So we want render not to have run yet. Yeah. And there's nothing we're doing in here that would require render to have already run. We're not doing anything to the DOM. Fix unwanted redirect. Fix unwanted redirect. Sure.